You know, we have these conversations because we really want to humanize tech, and we want to help everybody on the call and also watching live really understand how to get into tech and how to be their most authentic selves, because I think right now that's a very needed conversation and a very pressing issue in technology today. So with that, we will get started with a poll. I think Richie's going to help me with that. We want to just figure out, where are you at in your software engineering journey? Once we get that poll up, then it just came up, so we're going to give you a little bit of time to fill it out. As soon as it fills out, you can see who, like, kind of what the company is in the community, who's coming here. And so you can kind of see what, like, journey everyone's on, right? And so after that, we will introduce all of the panelists and we will go from there. Okay, looks like we have 0 to 3 years being the most, the highest, I guess, demographic, and then 10 plus years, so it's a big jump. But all of this to see that there's people from all over, all walks of life. This is a conversation that is not only for those starting their careers, but also those that maybe have been in their careers quite some time. And so this is a conversation that really is going to help you no matter where you are in your journey. And I'm so excited to welcome all of the panelists. I'll let them introduce themselves, but we will start with Joshua Encarnacion. He's the CEO of Outco, and I would love for him to give just a few words of like what he does day to day, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Kata. Yeah, serving in this role, essentially just trying to build a team that's democratizing access to tech, right? What we talk about all day long is, how do we get computer science fundamentals and communication skills, namely like understanding the interview process and how to best present yourself through the interview process, to job-seeking software engineers in the quickest way possible. Right, for about 5 years now, through ups and downs that I don't think many companies would survive. We've done so through our career accelerator program, but in the last 6 months, what we've been thinking about is, how do we do that with digital sales online? How do we do that with events that don't take a month long? Our career accelerator program is a month long, and it can last up to a year, given on your experience. And how do we share information that helps people get jobs, namely job-seeking software engineers? At some point, other roles, but that's where we are right now. And so building that team has been a ride. Thank you, Kata and Cristina, for being part of that. Felipe, I know you've seen the growth throughout the year, but that's what we do. And I guess in my role in specific, I'm just trying to make sure everybody continues moving in that direction.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. We're really excited to hear from you and your experiences. So then we're gonna go with Felipe Ventura. He's a founding board member and executive director at Techqueria. And so if you could tell us a little bit more about what you do, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so I'm currently helping run Techqueria. It's the largest Latinx in tech network. There's a lot of components to that. You know, we help out people in tech entering, and also the average age of our members is 3 to 4 years. So, you know, just not only getting them in, but also making sure that they become industry leaders. So my work is building out programs for our community, and also managing the partnerships with other tech companies so that we can create the best chances for our community to succeed.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much again for sharing that and for bringing that to the conversation. I think you have a very unique view, and we're super excited to have you on the panel. Okay, so Rachael Olasunkanmi, sorry if I did not pronounce that right. She's a finance account manager at We Can Code It, and she is really amazing, a super powerhouse, and I'll let her take it away.
Hey guys, so I'm Rachael. You pronounced my name really good. Olasunkanmi, it's pronounced exactly as it's spelled.
Perfect.
Yes. So a little bit about me is I work for We Can Code It, and what we do is we train adults who are looking to reskill in software development full stack. So it's really fun to kind of get to know all of our students and do these things. So and I'm looking for a job as part of what we do as well. So it connects right in with Outco and what they're doing. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. I've been in the tech space for about 1.5 years now, and I love that we are creating this community where there's people who look like us, and just creating these seats for people who may not have thought that they, belong. So thanks.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. We're so excited to hear from you because I think you have such an interesting perspective, especially as coming from boot camp and trying to figure out how do we actually bridge that gap. I think that's really awesome. And then next we will have Cristina Costa. She's the head of L&D here at Outco. And yeah, tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Thank you, Cata. Hi, everybody. I'm Cristina. I am head of learning and development in the career program at Outco. So as Joshua mentioned, we work together very closely. And I help with the interpersonal communication side of the program. So making sure that engineers feel confident about pitching themselves, how to demonstrate their value, how they can break down interview questions, how they can negotiate for higher salaries or other benefits that may be important to them, how they can reverse recruit and increase their network. We teach them how to build their confidence, essentially. So this is really what the career side of the program is. And I hope that many of you in the room today join us if you are on the job search and maybe are feeling a lack of confidence and maybe don't really know how to put your best foot forward. That's what we're here to do, is make sure that we're evening out the playing field and making sure anybody who has this background is able to get the job that they deserve.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we're going to learn so much from you. I'm really excited. And then last but not least, Melissa Chaile, and she is the podcasting community manager for Adonde Media. Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Hi, guys. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for considering me a part of this. I'm not an engineer, but my background is fully marketing. I started out in radio, but now I'm working in podcasts. So just kind of like transitioned over the years, and I'm actually in a really good space. I love Adonde. Adonde has started about 5 years ago. They actually received a grant to start their company, and what they do is multilingual content. So they do the content for TED Talks, TED en Español, a lot of stuff that you see on Spotify. They really do a great job at audiovisual storytelling. And I'm really happy to be with them. We're coming out with women empowerment podcasts, and it's just a bunch of Latinos from across the globe. We're fully remote, just like Outco. So Slack is our #1 thing. And that's how we work. We all do Zoom parties. This is the new normal, And I'm really excited to be here and talk more about being your authentic self, because if I wasn't myself, I wouldn't have had this job. So.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much. And I will introduce myself because I realized I did not. So I'm Catalina Peña. Right now I'm an outcomes program manager with Outco. So I help people after they complete the career accelerator to actually get jobs and connect them with our industry partners. I also have my own company, Catalyst Creation, and basically help with very similar things, but for Black and Latinx students specifically. And so it's really amazing for me to be on this panel just with so many amazing powerhouses right now. Like a few years ago, I was actually fired. I was fired 3 times. I was laid off once. So never in a million years I thought I was going to be here moderating such a beautiful, beautiful conversation. And so I'm super, super excited to dive in. So with that, what does bringing your authentic self to work look like? And everybody's going to answer this question because what we want to really highlight is that authenticity looks so different for everybody, right? There's not one thing that makes you authentic, except that it feels good to you. And so we want to make sure that we provide as many different views and as many different stories as possible so that you can identify with someone here on the panel and hopefully follow up, hopefully keep up that conversation, something that we teach all of our engineers here at Outco to do. Because if someone speaks to you, definitely follow up and probably they will be able to help you out and you'll help them out too. All right, so anybody who wants to jump in? I'll play popcorn, so. All right, we'll start with Melissa since she went last time.
I'm here, I'm freezing up a little bit, but you guys, I'm good?
Yeah, you're good, we can hear you.
Okay. So I think for me, at least, to bringing my authentic self to work is sticking to what I believe in, right? So if something I don't like is going on at work, I'm gonna say something about it. I'm gonna stand up for it. And if the situation isn't making me happy, if I feel like it's something toxic, if I feel like it's not really bringing the best out of me, I'm gonna leave and find something better. That's me bringing my authentic self to work. And it's happened before to me where, especially in the radio world, they expect Latinas to be a certain way, and I'm really not that way. The Sofia Vergara's and the curves and all that. And I just wanted to speak my mind and say what I wanted. And for some people, that's maybe not what they wanted to hear. They want to control a little bit, and but for me, I was like, nah, this isn't working for me. I'm moving on to the next. So that for me is how I bring my authentic self. If it's not making me happy, I'm out.
No, that's awesome. More power to you, girl, because I think it takes a really long time for people to realize that in itself is powerful, saying no to all the things that don't make you feel happy. And not everybody gets that chance. And so it's how great that you have that privilege. Okay, well, let's hear from Cristina.
All right. So for me, bringing my authentic self to work is a good question, because I feel like at so many places in the past, I was not able to be my true authentic self. I was always labeled as kind of this assertive, spicy Latina, because I speak my mind, because I have opinions, because people may have felt threatened that I was maybe smarter than them. So being authentic for me is really feeling safe, being in a place where you feel like, you're not in competition with people, that people there are there to support you and empower you. And that if you do have an opinion or something that may not be, the same opinion as everyone else, that you're not going to be scrutinized for it or alienated or isolated for it. So for me, it's really creating this kind of, we actually teach this in class, we call it psychological air, right? If you feel safe in your workplace, you're going to deliver better than if you felt anxious and walking on eggshells all the time. So for me, being authentic is feeling safe and feeling I have that psychological air.
Ooh, I love that. Safety is key, absolutely. And so, definitely want to highlight there, safety, just, happiness, because that is all really important. All right, so we'll hear from Felipe next.
Yeah, and I think with that safety, you mentioned like you are able to just show up at work better than you could ever show up. And I think with that also comes the ability to form community with your coworkers and the people that you share the space with where you work. I know that now during COVID, we're not physically in the same space, but we can still be in communities such as this event. And I think as a software engineer, I really think of software development as a people-oriented craft, and the ability to just be in community with other developers, your product managers, people on your team, really helps bring out the best code that I can provide. So it's really a team effort to create that safety.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I love the kind of perspective you provided as a developer, because we forget that a lot of these companies have been built off of people, right? People are actually building these. And so having people that look like most of us on this panel, right, is very key. And also allowing the people who don't look like us understand why it's important to build products for everybody, right? And so, having those tough conversations, it's really, really important to bring up. So thank you so much for highlighting that. All right, Rachel, you are up.
Okay, thanks, Catalina. So I had to really think about this question a lot because I wanted it to be authentic, but I also wanted it to be informative to you guys, for all the people that we have with us. I talk to our students a lot as they go through the process of deciding that they want to be a software developer and that this is the right journey for them. And a big part of that, even when it comes to just choosing what bootcamp is right for you in our area, we always tell them to put yourself in a place where you can be safe. Like we said on the panel, like where can you be yourself? And also where can you be vulnerable? So being vulnerable is so important because that's how you build trust. So if I can't not only be myself, but I also can't like feel comfortable enough to be like, man, I'm having a bad day, then that's not the right place for you. So for me, just being vulnerable enough to make connections with people so that you can show up as your best self every day. And so if you're having a bad day, your coworkers understand and you give yourself that grace to have a bad day because we're human. And so that's pretty much what being your authentic self would be to me. So thanks.
Yeah, no, it's a heavy question. It's not easy because it's like, I think we're programmed with all of these ideas of what it means to be professional, what it means to be, in tech. And it can look so many different ways. I love what you said about vulnerability and about just like being able to be vulnerable. That's something that we teach here at Outco as well is, how do you bring vulnerability to your interviews? How do you actually do that, especially as a software engineer, where it seems like there's no room for vulnerability? That's actually what's going to make you win. And so I think I would argue that in most workplaces, but especially as a software engineer, because it's typically not brought to the table in that fashion. And so definitely something that we teach, and I love what you said. And last but not least, Mr. Joshua Encarnacion.
Encarnacion.
Encarnacion, excuse me.
Honestly, what authenticity to me means in a workplace is I just want to be around people that do what they say they're going to do so I can do what I say I'm going to do. I love what Melissa shared earlier. I too have left jobs that like are considered dream companies because I just see a lot of like, when I'm being politically correct, incongruence, right? But if I'm keeping it real, bullshit. Like to me, it's just like, I want to work on skills, not have to play politics. And like, I want genuine connection, not communication strategies. Like, I think a lot of companies, we know they make you want to be something you're not. And that hurts. Like, it hurts to wake up in the morning and try to pretend. And I, for one, am very, very tired of pretending. I don't think I've pretended in about a couple years now. And it took a lot of therapy to get to that place. But knowing what I'm capable of, all I look for now in the workplace is, am I doing what I said I'm going to do? And am I around people that are doing what they said they were going to do? If that's intact, then I'm in the right place.
All right, dope. And like, I think what a pleasure and a privilege it is for you to build a company that really embodies that. And I know that Cristina and I, working under your leadership, really have felt that. And Outco, I'm not sure if it's hiring, but when it is, it's a really good company to work for. Because we do.
I just want to say something really quickly about everything, what everybody said. And like, the fact is, at the end of the day, my parents didn't work so hard to come to a whole new country for me to pretend to be something I'm not. They had to do that. They didn't have the privilege to do whatever they wanted. They busted their butts so that I could excel. And I'm not going to settle for just anything when they've worked so hard. And I know a lot of us can relate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think that is key. And especially with software engineering, like, we want to make it to the FANG companies, right? Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, right? Those are dreams. But the reality is like, cool, go there if you can be yourself. If you can't be yourself, it's not worth it. Trust me. Like, I've worked at multiple of those. And so it's not worth it. And I think that we get so blinded by all the shiny names because of our parents or because of our peers, because of our competition, that we forget that really what matters is being able to just go to your job, do what you're going to do, and have fun while doing it, right? That's 1,000% all that matters. And so with that, I want to kind of transition the conversation, and I want to throw it to Felipe and really ask, what are some barriers that disallow employees from showing up to work as their whole selves? Like, what do you think that is what's keeping tech from being authentic?
Well, I can speak from personal experience. I think that when I was forming employee resource groups for Latinx and Black employees, I noticed a lot of my coworkers change a bit towards like me. And I think that the barriers for people of color, specifically Black and Latinx workers, is that showing up authentically often comes at a price. And that price is that you may be perceived as trying to shake things up in how the workplace functions. So, you know, I think it's very, very important to show up authentically. At the same time, you have to take the necessary steps and precautions so that people don't take advantage of you unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm. No, well said. And I think it does. Authenticity comes with a price. Like, I personally know that. I know I'm not supposed to share, but again, you know, got fired 3 times, laid off once. And it came because of, I didn't know the politics. I didn't know the rules. And so with that, you know, I'd love to talk to Cristina and see, like, you're head of L&D. And so at a very small startup, and how are you know, what do you think are the barriers even in that environment? Maybe not so much at a big company, but in that environment.
The barriers to show up as their full self?
Show up as your full self. Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. To be honest, what I've seen as the biggest barrier right now amongst this Corona pandemic is just navigating a virtual space, right? A lot of people, you know, we're so used to being in a work office where you can kind of just hop into somebody's office and be like, hey, like, what's going on? You know, like, how's your day going? And now you actually have to be very intentional about who it is that you reach out to. So I think for people to show up as their authentic selves, it's a little bit more difficult now in this virtual space because you have to kind of create that space for yourself. Whereas before, you know, you could kind of maybe see somebody in the hallway or see them at lunch and kind of build those connections. So now you actually have to really be intentional about making those spaces for people. So I would say at Outco, I don't think there's an issue for people bringing their authentic selves, to be honest. I've had many jobs, like many. Like, I've been working since I was 15, and I'm older than maybe you guys think I am. So I've had many jobs, and I will say that Outco is probably the most inclusive, safe place I've ever worked. And so I think a lot, because I feel safe, right, and because the people I work with also feel safe, our employees, I believe, feel very safe and empowered as well. So I don't see any barriers really at Outco, except for really creating those intentional spaces so that people can be their authentic selves.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, you know, that's something else we teach in our career accelerator is, like, how do you put yourself out there, right? Because I think that everyone on this panel is a product of putting ourselves out there, you know, and really being able to do that gracefully and almost fearlessly, even if you are full of fear, because, like we were saying, our parents made all types of sacrifices, right? And we have to break the mold, right? Like Josh was saying. So with that, I want to kind of change topics a little bit, go from like the negative to like the positive a little bit, and give people tangible things that they can do to show up as their full selves. So Rachel, I know that you wanted to comment on this. So, you know, what types of things do you do at work to show up as your full self? And I know, to give a little bit of background of what Rachel does, she actually works in a majority like non-diverse, like older demographic. And so, you know, it's definitely a little bit harder when, like, in tech, I think we are really privileged in the sense of like who we work with and who we're working with. But then sometimes in different industries that may change and actually makes it a little bit tougher to show up authentically. But what are some of the practices that you kind of put into place?
Yep. So thank you for that intro, because I wanted to talk about that as well. So my workspace is, you know, although our mission is championing social equity in tech, so our students are very diverse, sometimes our team, you know, the people we work with, not within our organization, but outside when we're making connections and working in the community, is not very diverse. So, you know, me, a millennial woman who's spicy, as we've said, and, you know, doesn't hold her tongue sometimes, will show up and, you know, I'm sitting in a room full of, you know, 50-year-old men, and I have to, you know, figure out a way to navigate this environment and get my point across so that they hear me and they want to work with our company. So one way that I do this is whenever I'm in a new situation is I'm always listening and learning first before I just go in and give them everything, right? So I want to know the environment that I'm in, and I want to use my emotional intelligence. So part of that is going to help build trust, because you're going to be able to step into a room and you're going to be self-aware. So you're going to be aware of your own actions and how people are perceiving you, and you're going to be able to navigate these different spaces. The second thing that I do is if something's not right, I don't hold my tongue. I'm going to say how I feel, and I'm going to say it in a way that you're going to understand. So I'm not just going to be like, I don't like this. I'm going to say, hey, I don't understand what you're saying. This is what I'm hearing. Is this how you meant it? And that can be for anything. So it could be as simple as, someone asking me to do an assignment for work, or down to, them asking me to show up early to open the doors. Like, is that my job? Things like that. So no matter what that space is, I'm always gonna, speak my mind and say how I feel and make sure that I'm heard.
Yeah.
So what other things do you guys do?
No, I guess, can you hear me? Is this?
Yeah,
right?
you're right.
Okay, I had like a little weird echo. No, but I was gonna say, and just to kind of like sum up, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, a lot of these terms are not used when it comes to like software engineering specifically, but it also makes a huge difference, like Felipe was saying, about how you actually build technology and how that affects everybody that you build it for. And I know that he had some comments on, what he does specifically on how to show up to work as his full self.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something specifically as a software developer, like that in the media, how media portrays software development, it's a very white, East Asian, Southeast Asian kind of portrayal. And like, there's a culture around how software developers not only should look like, but should talk and should be interested in. And whether we talk about it or not, like that influences the workplace. And so as someone that is a Latino, like I don't have the same culture or interest, but I bring myself into how I code and how I communicate that code. So like there may be a perception with coworkers that are like majority represented that, oh, this is not how a software developer should like be interested in or like act. That's not at all related to the code that you write and the products that you're building. So there's like the work to be done as a software developer, but there's also the work of like shifting what it looks like and what a software developer acts. And so that's part of the work that not only like should be done by the individual, but like the organization itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that that's extremely important because, there is a perception of what a software engineer looks like. And I think that, I am super proud to be related to Outco and work at Outco because of the fact that we have a CEO who's an Afro-Latino Dominican man. Like, how many companies can say that? And also we are furthering so many avenues in, the diverse software engineering community because we know that we want to change that stereotype. And so it's really, really important, I think, for everyone here to kind of continue that and then also create awareness, because this is not a us versus them type deal. It's more of like, how can we actually work together and understand each other empathetically? Because just because you're not diverse doesn't mean, anything. It just means you're not diverse. And it's like understanding like how that has shaped your experience versus how being diverse has shaped a diverse person's experience, and really, really having those conversations. And so with that, Cristina, you were saying, at Outco, there's not a lot of barriers to having people bring themselves to work. But I know working there as well, I have seen this, how do you encourage your employees to actually show up for work authentically? Because I know that we saw on the call that we have some people that have more, more senior experience, maybe are managing teams. So how do you help people really create that space for their employees?
Well, first and foremost, I am always honest. I think honesty, whether it's good news or bad news, it needs to be shared. I think that, if this is your first time doing something, like I'm very straightforward with, so I manage a team of coaches. I have about 14 coaches that I manage. And this is my first time managing such a large team. And I've told them that I've been very honest and, this is my first time managing you all. And I want to do the best job I can do to empower and support you. So let me know, I'm always asking for feedback. I'm always asking for suggestions on what I could do better. So I think just being honest and humble, like that's a huge thing. That's something that we actually teach in the program is humility, right? And how important that is, because you're a human being. You're not perfect. No one is, right? And I feel like in a lot of past companies that I've worked at, and I've worked at some of the FANG, I guess, companies that you're talking about, the ones everyone wants to be at. I've worked at some of those places, and the management that I've seen there has always been kind of this like elitist, like, don't, tell me anything, and just top down type of management style, which is, number one, does not create a safe psychological space, as I was saying before. And also it leaves a lot of room for error and for people to feel micromanaged and feel like they don't have any say and autonomy in the role that they play. So what I like to do, and for my team at least, is to let all of my coaches know that if they have any suggestions or input, or if they see a blind spot, something that I'm just not seeing, let me know. And we can address this together. So that's one thing that I really do encourage, is just give me feedback. Let me know what's going on. I want to just create a really open, honest conversation with everybody that I work with, even people who I report to, right? It's like, I really, really value honesty, because I think honesty builds trust. And without trust, you don't have anything, right? Like, trust is so, so crucial. And I think when people do micromanage, like in previous roles I've been in where I've been micromanaged and I absolutely hated it. I don't know about everybody here, but that's literally my biggest pet peeve in like life, is micromanagement. That shows a lack of trust in your employees. That's essentially what micromanaging is showing. Like, I don't trust you to do the work that I've given you, so I have to check every single little thing that you're doing to make sure you're doing it exactly how I told you. So I think building a open communication model, having feedback, constant feedback, building trust, and ultimately letting people run with ideas. If they have ideas, like, encourage them, right? Encourage them and let them go with it, and don't just block every single idea that people have. That's what I've been at least learning throughout my journey, leading my team. But it's something that I really wished I had more of when I was working in other roles and had managers who maybe didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel you. And I think that, as a first time manager, like, it's always really difficult. And, having a team and having a leadership team that really helps support you is key. So with that, leadership team, Josh, I wanted to ask you kind of, how do you continue creating this trickle down effect of you kind of being the head of this, and then going down into empowering others? And kind of to piggyback off of that question, like, does it ever get to you, like, imposter syndrome of managing such a, unique organization and having the responsibility of being a leader? And also, does it affect your mental health or your work performance in that sense?
I think imposter syndrome is normal. And at some point, if you can't accept that as part of the reality, like, you gotta try and be in a different space. But for all the work that we're doing, I want to reach and say, I don't even think it is imposter syndrome. I think we're in a new space. Like, how many of us are there out there? I think, like, Felipe is the only software engineer that I know that looks like Felipe. Like, I swear to you. And I've seen so many software engineers, right? Like, I've only ever worked with software engineers. Like, my first job out of college was recruiting software engineers. My second job, building a recruiting department to recruit software engineers. Third, training software engineers. Fourth, building a training program that trains software engineers. Like, and every software engineer I can bucket into like five looks, and it comes from the same culture, right? Felipe is completely on the other side of that, right? And then, like, if you think about and like, I don't mean to use you as an example, Felipe, right? Like, also Rachel, Melissa, Cristina, Cata, you all, like, we don't get to be in Zooms like this. And like talking about the work that we're doing, even more so, that's super rare. And so when you say like, how do I create this trickle down effect? I don't even really think about it as a trickle down effect. I think about it as my job is to try and put people in the right position so that they can succeed. If they don't succeed, it's partly their fault, it's partly my fault. And if I have to take responsibility for that, then I do. Because I much rather learn the lessons from that attempt than never try at all. And like, again, tying it back to imposter syndrome, like, you can overcome it if you just try to do the work that you think you should be doing. And that's ultimately what I wake up to. Like, if this is going to make a bigger impact, given the conversation that we're having, like us being us doing this work in the tech industry, but also like actually getting the job done, then that's what I'm going to try to do. And again, like, in an authentic way, all that means to me is being around people that do what they say they're going to do. So I can try my best to do what I say I'm going to do. Like, as soon as that's not happening, then I have to make a change. Right. And like, I think everybody at Outco is already sick of me saying this, but I say this like every day of my life. Like, nothing changes if nothing changes. And I think about that in the context of just the life that we're living, like being a half, 1.5 generation Dominican American. Like, I'm looking around the way that the leadership team is running the United States. Like, right, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Like, who's going to be the ones to actually make those changes? I think about us in these rooms. And we can't all just be chilling in the same Zoom all the time. There's a lot of ground to cover. Like, so the more that we're in other spaces impacting people by just being ourselves, the better. That's what I think about. And like, again, I know I'm going to feel like an imposter doing it, but if I don't try, who will?
I love that. I love that. I love that. And like, you know, I think it's really important. You highlighted like everybody here, like, you know, there's not a lot of rooms. There's not a lot of leaders that look like us in tech or otherwise out there. So it's so important for us to be out there speaking, for us to be out there telling our story and really showing people that it can be done, because it's so many naysayers being like, no, you can't do that. Like, for all of us, I know. And guess what? Here we are. We're doing it, right? And I know that Melissa, I think you're there. Yeah. So I know that you kind of expressed that to us in the prep calls. You know, you are kind of dealing with a different side of the industry, but now you're getting into podcasting. So, you know, it's really cool to see kind of you merge all of your backgrounds together. So how has like imposter syndrome impacted you? And like, do you feel like it has impacted your mental health or how you work or how you talk to your team or how you build up your team?
No, definitely. Imposter syndrome, I looked it up a while back, years ago, because I was like, something's wrong with me. Like, I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, but why do I always feel like it's, you know, it's not good enough or I'm not good enough? And when I saw that, I was like, wow, like there's actually a term for it, you know, and that actually helped me get out of that, because imagine, you know, I'm a single mom too. I have a 12-year-old, 13-year-old son, you know, and as soon as he was born, I was like, I want to do radio, right? And my family, my friends, everybody was like, are you crazy? You have a baby to raise. And I'm like, yeah, but I still want to do it. And I started it, and that literally was where my journey began. And imagine, you know, coming into something where everybody acts a certain way and you're just completely different. And, you know, you're almost like, who am I? Like, you start feeling like, who am I really? And it's almost like a big soul search for yourself. And that really, every time I would fail, every time I would get fired, or every time I felt like I wasn't in the cliques with these people, right, in the industry, I felt like it was something that I was doing wrong, you know? And then eventually I started getting along with other people that were just like me, that I felt like, you know, people like you guys, you know, especially Techqueria. You know, I came into Techqueria maybe 3 years ago, and it's been a blessing ever since. You know, I loved it so much. I love tacos and I love tech. So together, like, amazing, you know? So I thought that, you know, and I've always been very empowering. Like, I've always wanted to up women. I've always wanted to empower women. And I've met some really mean girls that I thought, you know, hey, oh my God, we're going to get along. We're going to be a team. And then they ended up like crapping all over me, you know, but that didn't stop me. I was like, I'm not going to turn into an evil person. This is who I am. I'm going to continue helping, and I'm going to continue being me, you know? And maybe some people thought it was corny. Maybe some people were like, this girl's like fake or something. I don't know. But to me, I felt like I was still being who I am, whether you liked it or not. And that eventually led me to the space where I'm at now, where I'm working with a team that, you know, is super inclusive, super diverse. They're from all over the world. And we're all ourselves. Like it's more so we support each other, and you know, we get each other's jokes, and it's nice to be around that instead of having to be, you know, pretending like I enjoy my work when I really don't, and I'm miserable, you know. And you just flourish so much more when you're with a team like that than, you know, when you're pretending to be something you're not. And I always was like, to end that, like, is it, I always thought, oh, is it something wrong with me? But no, it's something that's wrong with them. I'm great. You know, like I'm doing what I can. I'm following my morals. I've got my principles together. I know what I want, you know. So eventually I was like, you know what, Mel, you're doing great. You're doing amazing. And like, going back to what somebody said about, you know, I think it was Cristina, where she said that you kind of like threaten people that are in higher positions and things like that. I've gone through that so many times, especially being younger. And then, you know, a lot of nepotism in these big companies that everybody wants to be in, like their mother's sister's cousin is the HR person, you know, or whatever the case may be. And it's hard to break through that because of that connection that they have. So then it kind of makes you feel like you're like a crappy person because you can't seem to connect with somebody like that, or you don't respect them because you work so hard to be where you at, and then you see somebody else with a position so highly regarded, and then they don't even want to listen to you when you know more. So it's hard, but it can be done. You know, you just got to stick through it and realize, listen, I've gotten turned down 3 times, and I finally got hired by that dream job that everybody was like, wow, you know, and I left it. Because after all that, I was like, I tried to be here 3 times. You guys told me no. Then you guys finally wanted me. And now that I'm here, you still don't appreciate me. I'm out. Like, I'm going to go for what I really want. And honestly, that rejection is literally guiding you to the right path every single time. And that's how you should see it.
Ooh, mic drop, girl. Yes. And she froze. So we'll move on from that. But yeah, I think it's definitely, you know, knowing that, I think there's almost a fairy tale or something that about careers where it's like, oh, you find the job and it's like your job forever. And it's like, actually, you can have so many jobs and work at so many companies, and like, perhaps your dream company is a FANG company and you don't get there the first job you get, that doesn't mean you're not going to be VP of a company one day, of that company one day, but you have to start like maybe somewhere else to get there. And so I love that what you were saying, and like really changing the career outlook that people have of just like being this one, you know, one company will solve all your problems, to being like, look, a company will teach you and you'll teach them. And then once the lessons are over, then you go, and there's no hard feelings. It's just everybody is doing what's best for themselves, and the company's an entity, so are you. So you continue, keep going. And so, you know, you go from there. And I know Felipe kind of wants to add a little bit on this topic. So I'd love to hear a little bit more from you.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I was lucky enough to have my first job be at a large company doing software development. And I was excited. It was, at the time, one of the biggest IPOs. So, it was like, wow, I couldn't have landed at a bigger place. What I found was that for several years, there's so many people there, and there's like so many silos in the team that I got to work on a very, very small part of the whole operation. And I did get some experience in that. But then my second software engineering job was at a much smaller place with less than 20 people. And there I was able to work across the stack, front end, back end, database administration, deployment, and the type of like mentorship that I could not get at the bigger company. So in terms of my growth as a software developer, it was like night and day. And the salary was very similar. So, it comes with its benefits as well. So for all of you that are looking for an alternative to the FANG, I would highly recommend it. It's worth it. If not, matching the whole package, you'll definitely get the experience that will get you closer to a FANG if you haven't been there. And that's like still a goal.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, like changing that narrative and not going, like, there's nothing wrong with FANG companies, like if you want that, but knowing very well what you're going to get from that experience. And I think that people might not be clear on exactly what experience you're getting, depending on where you're going. And that's something that that we teach, is just like trying to figure out, what do you actually want? Like, you know what I mean? What is it that's going to allow you to be your happiest and bring your most authentic self to work? Because really, at the end of the day, like we're trying to say with this panel, that's all that matters. So I'd love to hear from Rachael and see, what are some of the benefits? Because I know, for me, there wasn't a lot of benefits. Like I mentioned, and I will say it loud and proud, I got fired 3 times. I got laid off once because I was bringing my whole self to work and I didn't know about politics. Like, I didn't know politics were a thing. Like, I thought I could really go talk to the CEO and just be friends with him. Like, I was like, okay, yeah, you're a person. Like, okay. And so sometimes it might not be clear to a lot of people, how we can actually, what are the benefits of that? Because sometimes, especially as diverse professionals, it can be, almost seen as a, as a setback to bring your whole self to work. So what are some of the benefits?
Yeah, thanks. I definitely understand you being scared, or like having that imposter syndrome to even think about, like, okay, I'm mad, I'm going to be mad, or I'm excited, can I be excited today at work? Are they going to take me for who I am? But part of that is people need to know something about you in order to trust you, right? So it's hard to build relationships with people who don't give you anything, right? So you want to kind of find your happy medium. Like, you don't want to show up to work and be the person who's oversharing and is, telling you, everybody, what you ate at 9 a.m. all the way down to like 9 p.m. when you went to bed, okay? But you also don't want to be that person who just like comes to work and just says hello and then goes and sits down. People need to know something about you. So I always, like, my students, I'm going to bring up my students because they are, who we're coaching to get jobs, right? We want them to be successful. Same thing with you guys at Cutco. So I would say try to find that like fine line between not oversharing and just giving enough of yourself that you're showing up authentically and that you're building trust with others. So friendships take time. You want to build them slowly, build them daily, and build them authentically. So.
No, I love that. I love that. And, I think, well, I will let Josh answer this because I see him smiling. What are some benefits of bringing your whole self to work? Like, where did that get you?
I just wanted to say first, Rachael, I love how you said Cutco. I used to sell knives for Cutco when I was 16. I used to go door to door and sell knives, but not Cutco, Outco, which is short for outcomes-based learning.
I'm so sorry. I've even looked up the website, so I'm familiar with what you do, okay? I could sign up. You might see me in the pipeline.
It's all good. Look, I'm just keeping it real, and we're all keeping it real, right? So you speak up when you hear it. Nah, we used to laugh about that too. We used to laugh like, it's probably going to be Coco, but no. I think the benefits of this, I get to hop on Zoom and wear shirts that say like, menos hate más perreo, right? And like, that's a privilege. I know it's a privilege for sure. Because if I was wearing this shirt while I was working at Fan Company X or Fan Company Y. I've worked at a couple, right? I would get questions, and like Cristina Costa know me like this. Felipe, you know me, right? Like, and Melissa and Rachel, if we had the time, would get to know each other. I'm a big time troll. I love reading books, so like I process things very fast, and jokes to me is the greatest way to release. So I love jokes. Like I just think it takes a lot of intelligence to be funny, right? Sometimes I'm just corny, not funny. But like I would I would wear a lot of shirts at tech companies to troll people. One of my favorites was too tired to code switch. And like, again, I've only ever worked with software engineers. So they're like, oh yeah, you know, like when you go from JavaScript to like Python, yeah, it's annoying. I'm like, yeah, you'll get it one day. I'm like, sure, yeah, high five. Um, but like, I think the biggest benefit for being authentic or fighting to remain authentic is I don't have to be too tired to code switch. Like, if I want to say something in whatever language I feel comfortable saying it, I'm going to fight to use that tone of voice, that diction, that background, that style. And I mean, it's still not like I can just subconsciously say whatever I want. I have to police myself all the time because I don't want to come off in the ways that the industry has then rooted their cultures in, like racist, sexist. You can't be racist, but right, like homophobic, like ableist, whatever. But it's just the comfort in knowing that if I say, hey, pull up that doc, people know what pull up means, you know? And I think like in a lot of workplaces where I really wanted to get things done really fast, I would have to stop, right? Stop. Hey, can you please open that document? Oh, it's so tiring because all day, right? Like all day, I feel like I'm pretending. Right, pull up, Melissa. And I think like I shouldn't be evaluated. This is just a personal thought, but that I like to share at places I work at and ideally places I get to help build. We shouldn't be evaluated on the language we use, but on the value that we add. I don't know where this idea of like visibility and presentation politics overcame like actual getting work done. And I'm just kind of not in the place in my life where that's what I want to do. I think navigating is an art, and if we want to engage in navigating, then we should, and more power to those people. But I think me as existing as who I am in a room should be more than enough if I know what work I'm doing. And that's kind of that's kind of what I try to base my career on. That's been the staple of my career. Like I wasn't a technical recruiter. I've hired over 200 engineers. So like, I'm not going to hear it when I use pull up over please open that document, right? I've done the work. And I think that is going to be the mantra for myself and whatever team I'm on. And I hope that can be adopted in other places, because being authentic to me, again, is just doing what I say I'm going to do and being around people that do what they say they're going to do. And then that means if it's recruiting, I get to recruit. And then if I want to go eat arroz con bite, I can go eat arroz con bite. I don't have to drink IPAs to be a good recruiter. I can drink Hennessy. Like I don't have to wear a Patagonia vest. I can wear shirts that come from a Bad Bunny concert. To me, authenticity means I like what I like and I do a really good job. And that's the people I like to be around. And ideally they look like us. That's what I think the benefit is.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's funny, like I didn't even think about pull up as a term that people didn't know, because that's the thing, like what, who would even know, right? And so I think it is really for those of you on the panel who might not be, diverse, this is just giving you like an insight of what it is to be diverse and all the little things that really kind of you have to think about in addition to your job, in addition to everything else. And that's why we're having this conversation specifically with the panelists that we have is because we don't get this air very often. Like this doesn't happen. And so, you know, I really want to like encourage that conversation, and whether that's internally or, you know, within your company, to go back and like be like, oh wow, like what is your experience like versus mine? Because definitely it's it can be really daunting to kind of change yourself when you're at work. And I just want to add a little story about like just Outco and just how wonderful it is. And then we are actually going to drop a poll for Outco, not Cutco, if you want to learn more about how to work with us, because this is exactly what we teach. And so while you all are filling out that poll, talk about bringing your authentic self to work. So I used to work at a VC firm, and I would put on this phone voice, and I'm kind of doing it now unconsciously because I still am kind of like reprogramming myself. But at Outco, when I was working with Josh, I think one day, I don't know why, I speak Spanish. So I started speaking Spanish in a Cuban accent. I'm Colombian. So I wanted to. And I showed up to our one-on-one and I spoke with him in this Cuban accent. And it was like one of the best moments I've ever had with a manager and also at work, because I was like, you know what? I can come into this place and be fully myself, like 1,000%. And we were actually talking about really, really important things. And so, you know, I say that because at Outco, it's not just like an interview accelerator. We're like, all right, cool. Like we're going to teach you, you know, LinkedIn strategy and like, you know, talk like this and, you know, land all of this stuff with negotiation. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. But also it's really, thinking about how can you be your most authentic self and find a place that accepts you just as that. And so if you want to go ahead and, you know, just click on the Outco info session, time that works best for you, we'd love to share that with you. And then we'll get your details a little bit later in the call, but definitely this is what we do at Outco all day. And legit, I show up to my students and I talk to them just like this, and it's wonderful and it's amazing, and people learn from me and I learn from people as well. So it's really a conversation that is very needed that we get to have every single day here at Outco. All right, so do we want to show, or we're going to move on from the poll now. I was waiting for the results. I'm like, we don't need to show the results. So one last question, a couple more questions, but I do want to ask, like, all right, great. We've talked about authenticity. We've talked about all these wonderful things. So how can we build more inclusive environments? And I'm talking inclusivity for the people who look like us, obviously, but also, you know, for the people who are majority in these companies, so it can be a truly inclusive workspace for everybody involved, right? This conversation sometimes is, like I mentioned before, us versus them, and really it's like, hey, look at me, I'm a person, I'm having a different experience than you, and notice. That is what we're asking for, you know? So how do we actually do that in person or now virtually? And I would love for Cristina to answer this question, or actually Felipe to answer this question first, especially since you have reach with so many people with Techqueria, so many companies with Techqueria. How are you doing that?
So I think the majority of this conversation has centered like the workplace, and that's super important. You know, that's where you make your money, that's where you advance your career. Apologies if you hear my baby in the background. But I think the real power that we have is to connect and build community networks. So not only the workplace, but like people in another workplace, people in other like employee resource groups in like other companies, bigger networks. Techqueria is one of them, but it's not the only one, you know? However you identify, there's gonna be a network for you. And I would say like to not limit your learning to a particular group, because there's so much happening out there. And just like those interactions, this dialogue we're having, and just like learning as a craft, whether it's like software development or not, when you have conversations, that's where like your skill level increases, because you're you're sharing your experiences and things like that you don't know as a developer, as as a worker, you know? So I would say like reach out to your networks. If the network's not there, build the network if you can. Find people that are interested in building a network with you. And as someone that, you know, is like just an early organizer in Techqueria, you know, we started with just in the Bay Area, maybe 20 people or so. Now we have more than 10,000 active participants. You know, it doesn't matter starting small, because like if you have a good thing going, it'll get bigger, and like the learning will happen and the growth will happen.
Yeah, amazing. I love what you said about like patience and about community, because I think exactly, this is not a us versus them. It is a community. And how do we build that? And how do we get people to cross-pollinate and actually go from one place to another, and really learn about all of what's happening with each individual community? I think that's definitely, you know, something so crucial. And especially as like software engineers, that's not like the kind of the look, right? Like you're building community, but in reality, you are super collaborative as a software engineer. You are building community every single day. You are building trust, and kind of using that to build that in for everybody that's working there, and continuing to develop like your self-awareness, your emotional intelligence through all of that. That's definitely key. So I want to end, because I want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A. So I'm going to ask one last question to all the panelists, and then we're going to drop one more poll, like I mentioned, for the Outco info session, so you can put all your information in. We'd love to see you. So what advice do you have for job seekers looking for companies that value bringing your authentic self to the workplace? Any red flags for companies that are not inclusive? And I'd love for Melissa to kind of lead us off in this.
Okay. Can you repeat it real quick? I'm so sorry.
That was a really long question, I know. So what advice do you have for job seekers looking for companies that value bringing your authentic self to work? I know that you had a lot of different changes in your career. And so, you know, what were you looking for and what were red flags for you?
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a really funny story. It was probably one of my most interesting interviews ever, but I applied for a job at Polaroid, and they were looking for an influencer marketer to handle their influencer program, and I had purple hair. So they were completely Jewish, Orthodox Jewish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The ones that, you know, they don't work on Saturdays, you know, they work on Sundays, which for Latino, that's like, what? Sunday for us is, you know. So I was so scared about going to this interview, and I really wanted the job. And I found like, what's those things like Parisians usually wear, French people, the what's the hat thing? It's like it covers basically your whole head. Yes.
Yeah.
A boudet? No.
A beret.
A beret.
A beret, not a boudet. They also use that, but for very different reasons. You don't want to wear that on your head. A beret.
But a beret. So I wore a beret that my friend lent me, and I put it on. I look so weird going to an interview like this. And I'm like, oh my God, the Orthodox Jews, they're going to think I'm crazy. I have purple hair, you know. So I get in there, and then literally the CEO, you know, he wanted to come down and meet me. And he's like, what's up with that hat? You know, like, what's going on there? And I'm like, I have purple hair, and I didn't know if you guys would, blah, blah. He's like, take it off. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, so I take it off. He's like, it looks great. We love it. And then from there, that made me want to really work with them, because they made me feel so comfortable, even though there was a culture barrier there, you know. And the fact that he was so cool and understanding about it, I was like, I want this job, you know. So I think that that's really key, is especially if, you know, if you bring a lot to the table and you're valuable, if they can make you feel that, you're gonna want to work even harder for them, you know. And now bringing that to what I do right now with Adonde Media and the podcast marketing job that I have with them, The same thing, like I always felt like I just didn't fit in certain things. Like either I was, you know, too gringa, right, for certain things, or too Latina for hip hop, or whatever the case, right? The American market. With them, I fit in just right because most of them are based out of South America, right? Some of them are in Spain. I'm based in the US, but my background, you know, my South American parents, right, Colombian, Argentinian, they are all based in Chile, Argentina, Colombia. So it's like, I'm I'm still the gringa, but I'm still also very South American. So it's like if I wasn't who I am, I would have never gotten that job because it just mattered so much that I was able to relate to the South American side, to my American side, to my music side. So it all just came together so nicely. And I think they actually embraced that. They're like, Mel, we want you to be Latinx. Because, you know, in South America, it's not a thing yet. You know, it's like Latinx. Like, what are you teenagers doing? You know, like, why are you guys naming something else, making it más complicado, siempre inventando, you know? So I think that they want me to be this Latinx person. They're like, we want you to shine, we want you to do that, you know. And I bring up things that they probably wouldn't want to talk about. Like, for instance, it's Hispanic Heritage Month, you know, in the USA. So that's something that we're going to start highlighting, and I'm bringing that community to their South American community, you know. So I think that is a key thing when it comes to an employer and a job, is just make them feel comfortable enough to be themselves, because trust me, you're going to get the best out of them that way.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that, you know, just exactly, don't make assumptions, right? Because some of the assumptions that you make, right, might not be true, and you might miss out on a really great opportunity. So definitely, like, making sure that you are like watching out for your own biases, because everybody has biases, and so making sure that those don't cloud the opportunities that you get. So I want to actually, this is for all the panelists, and I want to be mindful of time, but I do want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to share. So Rachel, what would you say is what do you look for in companies that tells you they're inclusive, or that gives you like red flags that they're not?
Yeah, no, for sure. The main thing that I look for when I'm like in the interview process with companies is I'm looking for like their values. So what are they telling me about their company that they hold, you know, like some companies have like certain standards that they hold for themselves. So like my company, for example, we have certain values like, you know, mean what you do and follow through when you say you're going to do something and things like that. And we really do hold ourselves accountable to that. So I want to know things like that. And I really, really take my time to do my due diligence when I'm in the interview process. So as much as you want that job, you need to make sure that you really want that job. Like, is this somebody that you can see yourself, you know, coming to work and chatting with on a, you know, a day when you may not want to chat with them, or, you know, you just want to make sure that you're going to be able to be comfortable and be yourself. So don't go, like you said, like Moses said, she showed up with the beret, like show up as yourself. Like, I'm showing up with my curly hair, and one day it might be straight, you know, like you don't know who you're going to get with me one day, but I'm going to show you, and I'm going to take my time to do my due diligence. So that's my biggest advice when it comes to, you know, showing up as your authentic self and vetting during that interview process.
No, I love that. I love that.
And not a boudet, a beret.
Yeah. Yes, a beret.
Yeah. And I think it's due diligence. And I think sometimes we're so in a rush to get a job that we forget that all of that matters, and we are also the prize. Like, they are not the only prize, we are also the prize.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that you wanted to add something here, and so I wanted to give you the floor.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add something specifically for the job seekers out there who are, you know, looking for a place where you feel that you'll be included, where you feel like that you can be authentic. So one big piece of advice, and something that I wish people had told me when I was younger, and I had to learn a lot of this on my own and through experiencing places that the website looked great. The website had all these brown people like smiling, and it seemed like an awesome place to work, and it just was like, oh my god, it looks so diverse, and it looks like they care so much about culture. And then I got there, and the realization, or the reality, was that it was not that way at all. And I started realizing, okay, so I'm seeing all this culture and diversity on the website, but I'm here, and Not a single manager is brown. Not a single person in leadership looks anything like me or anyone in my family. Everybody's white. Okay, there's maybe like a sprinkle, couple people here or there. And so what I would say for the job seeking engineers who are really looking for a place where you can be authentic is you have to do your research. You have to do your research. And that doesn't mean just looking on a website, looking on a blog, looking at their social media pages, because this is the information that they want, that companies are going to put out there, right? They want to be portrayed a certain way, right? It's marketing 101, right? So what I recommend is if you see a role or a company that you're really aligned with and you're really interested in working there and you are, you've been a fan of them for a while, reach out to someone that works there. Maybe reach out to another brown person that works there and really ask them, hey, I really love this company. I love the mission of this organization and I'm thinking about joining and I would love to learn a little bit about your experience there. How has it been for you working there? And really like take the time and the research and due diligence to do those things, because I guarantee you, if you do not do those things and you end up at one of these FANG companies that supposedly cares about diversity and you end up there and then you realize that they don't, in a year, you will be on the job search again. So do your research, meaning have those conversations and network. And not only is that conversation helpful for you to know if this place is going to be a good fit for you, but it's also helpful for you to make connections there. And who knows, maybe they'll tell you this is an amazing place to work. And then you'll be so excited about applying. And then they'll refer you to the company because you've already made this connection. So it's kind of a win-win situation here, but definitely do your research and network, reach out to people, ask them about their experiences.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think we're going to transition to Q&A because I want to make sure we definitely have time for that. There is a question that just disappeared on me. I'm like, what happened? But it was around like, what is one question that you ask to determine if a company is a good fit, right? And I want to punt that over to Josh. And in the meantime, while we get that answered, I want to drop one last poll in case you're interested in getting more content like this, interested in the Interview Accelerator program that we have here, or Career Accelerator program we have here at Outco. So we just dropped that. But in the meantime, Josh, I would love, kind of what questions do you ask to see if the company is a good fit for you?
I'm a little bit heavy. I don't recommend this approach to everybody, but it's worked well for me because it's allowed me to be very straight with people from the beginning. But I ask, how many Black and brown people work at your company? It's that straightforward. I do it right in the interview. And not everyone's going to be comfortable with asking that question, but that's going to give you the most realistic response to whether or not your interviewer, which will potentially be your teammate, is comfortable saying the word Black or brown. Like if I sense hesitation, we have this many Black people. I'm like, why are you whispering? What did you just say? Black people? Like it's okay to say that. But again, I'm a little bit different, and I say that to everyone that I work with, if I'm their recruiter or if I'm their coach, manager, teammate. To me, I'd much rather get to the heart of the matter, and I've asked that question at FANG companies in any interview process, and out of respect for the interviewers I've had in the past, they've answered very straight because this isn't information that isn't already on the internet. I asked that question because I know what the answer is, because I do my research beforehand. And for most tech companies, it's going to be less than 5% representation. So if I hear more than 5% representation, I'm going to be like, well, one, you made me uncomfortable by hesitating to say Black and brown people. And two, you're lying. So I might not want to work here because you're probably going to be hesitant when I say I want to drink Hennessy over an IPA and Yarro Convite instead of whatever free veggies y'all give me. And you're probably going to be really uncomfortable when I say, hey, we should probably hire more Black and brown people. Ideally, more Black and brown women so they can be in successful roles that shape the makeup of the company. But again, I'm different. I've been very comfortable with saying that. I want to chalk it up to whatever I've read over the years, or also maybe some element of light skin privilege. Not sure. But from my vantage point, the number one question is, how many Black and brown people work at your company? And if that's really a concern for you in terms of fitting in, asking how many Black and brown people on my team. Will I be managed by a Black or brown person? Again, I'm not sure if that's the best approach. A lot of times, most people will want to navigate and ask that question in a very, what folks will consider non-offensive way. I don't think it's offensive to ask how many Black and brown people work at your company. I think that's a very standard question, considering what everyone's becoming aware of in terms of the systemic oppression that's shaped how companies are formed. But again, practice makes perfect. Sit in a mirror and ask yourself, is it okay? Is this an okay question? Because I think it is. But Kata, that's my response.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it really depends on your level of comfortability and the comfortability and the level of confidence that you have. And remember that confidence is a spectrum. Like, you're not, some days you might feel comfortable asking that question. And so at some points in your life, you might feel comfortable asking that question. And there are other points that you don't, right? And I think it's really, like Josh was saying, being super clear with yourself and being like, okay, does this feel okay to me today? And if it doesn't, then don't ask it, but maybe ask something around diversity, or, what are you doing to support your diverse employees, right? And kind of ask something that makes you feel comfortable. So another question that we have is, how did you find this community and network? Or I guess, like, we can open it up, and how do you find community and network? And I would love, Cristina, your network is your net worth over there, to answer, how do you network? You're everywhere.
Yeah, great question. So I always saying this in classes, and I always say this in just in life. It's my life motto: is your network is your net worth. Because at the end of the day, it kind of doesn't matter what you know, it's who you know. And that's something that I'm always telling people, because you never know who may be that next person to give you that opportunity that you were looking for, right? You never know who that next person is who opens the door for you, or maybe paves the way for you to, take this next step in your career. So for me, I'm all about finding communities, right? And they're out there. And there are tons of communities, and there's so many resources out there. So if you go on LinkedIn, if there's something in particular that you're really passionate about, maybe you really are obsessed with front-end engineering, maybe that's like your thing, go on LinkedIn and search for communities that, in the LinkedIn groups, look for front-end engineering groups, right? There's always tons of organizations like Techqueria, like She Geeks Out, like, what are other ones? I mean, so many, like Resilient Coders. I mean, there's so many organizations that are doing the diversity work in tech, right? That are trying to diversify the tech industry. And they're all online as well. So you really need to search for it, and be intentional about your searching, right? What kind of community are you looking for? Do you want to be with other Latinos working in tech? Okay, so then you should definitely join. There's also Latinas in tech, right? There's so many different organizations you can be a part of. So one thing I'd highly recommend is using all the tools that are at your disposal. You have LinkedIn, you have Facebook, there are Facebook groups, there's Instagram. We have no excuses right now. We're all quarantined, right? We're all quarantined, and we're online 24/7. And there are so many opportunities out there to network with people. So I would say, be intentional about the kind of communities that you want to be a part of. Look for them, join them, and then engage. When you're in there, engage with people, right? Don't just show up and just be a kind of fly on the wall, quiet. Like, engage with people, talk to people. People are now looking for community and connection now more than ever, right? We're all isolated in our homes, and we want to connect with one another. So don't be afraid to reach out to someone, especially on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people hesitate, and they're like, oh, maybe if you look up to someone and you're like, I really want to know how they got to where they are in their career. I would love to learn from them, but I'm not going to reach out because I don't want to bother them, right? And that's not the case. You'd be surprised if you approach someone with a genuine ask and like a genuine interest, like, hey, I've been following your work for some time now. I really love the impact that you're making doing X, Y, and Z. You know, would you be able to meet with me maybe for 20 minutes? Tell me a little bit more about your career path or how you got to where you are, right? People are flattered by those kind of messages. People are like, will be like, wow, this person really like looks up to me and like is interested in what I'm doing. Like, I would love to have a conversation with them. So don't hesitate to do those things. Don't harass people though and like send them like, hey, look at my resume, like check it out. Like, no, don't do that. But be very genuine and authentic with your outreach. And don't be afraid to reach out to people, because you never know. Like that one person that you're like, oh, I bet you this person's never going to respond to me. They must get so many messages. You never know. They may respond to you. And then what? You've won now, right? Because now you have an opportunity to maybe learn from someone that you really have admired. And I've learned so much from doing that and reaching out to people and being part of organizations and leading organizations as well. And that's how I've made my network. And I've also let people know to reach out to me if they have questions or if they want to be connected with someone or something that I know. And I've done that a lot. I'm known as the plug. A lot of people call me the plug. That's like what I do. I like to connect people. There's a lot of resources out there. You just need to find them.
I want to add something to what Cristina said real quick. But there is an art to it, right? Because I think also the way that I've networked so much is being funny, to Joshua's point, right? You can't reach out and be sometimes too professional with certain people because they get stuff like this all the time. So if you add a joke, if you make something funny, if you're following them and supporting them, maybe you're at their Zoom, maybe they're here at the Zoom and they're like, the next day they're like, you know what, Mel, I saw you at the Zoom. You were amazing. I'd love to ask you a little bit more. Show love to get love. That's always been my thing. Like, I used to get upset because I would do stuff and people would expect or feel entitled to get the information from me that I worked so hard to get for myself, that I spent money on to go to these events and network with these people. And then they just want just want to come in. And sometimes just the industry is very finicky. So sometimes they just want to use you for your contacts. And, you know, you have to be careful with that too. So you have to protect your space. You have to protect your energy and also see that whoever's coming to you for this information comes from a good place at heart, you know. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, but you know, you always, your gut will let you know, you know. And this happened to me before. I had a girl that worked at a record label that reached out to me right after Corona, and she's like, I'm going crazy, I lost my job, I don't know what to do. And I started mentoring her, you know, and now she's in a good space. She's got a new position and she's doing really well for herself. So I don't mind helping people and offering my services and doing all that like Cristina does. But also you got to also learn how to protect your space and not give too much, because people will take advantage. So
good call out, Melissa.
Yeah. I know we have a minute left, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Rachel, I did want to get to you for one last question as well. But again, I would love to just be mindful of everyone's time. And thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you being here. All our panelists shared so many gems. Please follow them on LinkedIn. Please comment, all the things. Reach out. If you really liked what our panelists was saying, what I was saying, please reach out. Like everyone mentioned, we are all about helping people. And so we really, really hope that you stay connected with us and keep coming to Outco events. Like Josh was saying, you know, our mission is to really just humanize tech and really decolonize it as well. And so, you know, we're doing that, and hopefully these conversations help you see that. And with that, ciao mi gente. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Wednesday. And everybody, you know, just have good vibes always.